I'm going to be working on doing a front-end inspection on a front-wheel drive vehicle, and this will apply to every single vehicle that's front-wheel drive that has this type of transverse mounted type transmission, which makes it a front-wheel drive. And what you have to do first is two things. You need to make sure that all of the lug nuts are tight. Also, the axle nut tight. Those are the first two things you're going to do, and I've already checked that. Those are simple things anyone can do. You can just get a tire iron or you can get a torque wrench and just check them at like at least 65 foot-pounds on any car. You could just do 65 foot-pounds. I've never seen any car be less than that. Any SUV, any sedan, coupe, nothing. So just a minimum that. And then the axle nut, minimum 100 foot-pounds. You'll be fine if you just do 100 foot-pounds, just to make sure that the nut is not loose and to make sure your lug nuts are not loose. Okay? The next thing that you want to do is put one hand at 12 o'clock, like on a clock, and one hand at 6 o'clock. And you want to do this. Push forward and pull back. Then push forward and pull back on the top. So you're checking for the top to bottom movement. And typically, when you do this test, you are going to feel any kind of movement in either the CV axle or the wheel bearing. So both are connected. There's a lot of parts here, so it's not always the wheel bearing. Sometimes it could be the CV axle nut is loose, or it could be the hub assembly. It could be loose lug nuts. That's why you're going to check all those things first. And so you'll just push and pull, and feel for any movement. If you feel any kind of a rocking, you'll know when you've got some movement when you do this test. If you just feel the tire flexing, then that's fine. That you don't have movement, and then you can just do a good fist bump, and you're not going to hurt anything because this can take this 4,000 pounds weight of the vehicle on this front end, not this one wheel, but this is strong. It's not going to break by doing this. And just give it a couple of good pounds. Make sure it feels good, solid, no movement, all that. Then you put one hand at 9 o'clock and one hand at 3 o'clock, just like on a clock. So we're going to go 3 o'clock, something like that. And what I like to do is I like to just put my hands like this and kind of let my forearms rest here on the tire. And then I grab around the tire on the inside and I move it like in and out, and in and out like this. So I'm pulling and pushing and pushing and pulling like this. So you grab in there, and this is checking the front end parts. Now this only applies to a rack and pinion or gearbox type steering system, not electric steering. However, if you have an outer tie rod end that's really worn out, then this would become a good test. But for checking movement and play and all that in the front end, typically rack and pinion steering and the regular gearbox. But I don't think you'll find a gearbox on a regular front-wheel drive compact car. But you could do that test on a SUV if you do what I'm showing you. It'll work the exact same way. So you grab here and you're just feeling to see if there's movement. If the steering wheel locks, then go unlock it when you do this test. It doesn't seem to be locking up on me, but you don't need to move very much, just a half an inch. And you want to make sure that when you move it, you've got some resistance there, because this has got to be able to support this vehicle at 80 miles an hour on a freeway. It's got to be able to stay in line. It can't be sloppy and all moving around any direction it wants. So when you go and grab it, just make sure that as you push and pull, that it's moving at the same time, and there's not like additional movement outside of that steering. So you don't want to feel any looseness when you go like this. You want to feel it move with resistance. Okay, so I don't know how to say it on camera, how it would be. You just have to go by feel. If you feel a bad one, you'll know what it feels like. A good one feels like when you're pulling on it, it's moving, but the whole steering is moving in unison. So That's what I'm finding here. I don't find it to be loosey-goosey. Like loosey-goosey, you'd be just touching it like this and it would be kind of moving and shuddering a little bit. I'm feeling it to be pretty solid. And you could do this, and if it doesn't like move and rattle and everything, odds are everything's in perfect condition. So to me, this looks good. All this feels good, looks good. Then take the opportunity to look at the rotor and take the opportunity to look in at the brake pads to make sure you've got at least 50% left of material on the brake pad, which is usually about 10 millimeters. And make sure your rotor is not destroyed and doesn't have grooves in it. This one has grooves in it, so the customer's going to need to do a brake job soon, but that's not the reason why they dropped their car off for me to look at it. Then you check this strut spring and shake it back and forth like a monkey in a cage trying to get out. So yank it and move it, make sure there's no looseness on this strut, and then look up at your strut bolts up here. See your strut bolts, make sure that they're all there, and then that this is not broken out. You want to make sure that this upper part of the strut tower is good and intact and that nut is there, and then these 3 nuts, I usually see 3 holding a strut on, that they're all good and in place and everything's good there.